Paradigms of Interdependence. Covey starts off this chapter with a quote. I think you really like it. It goes like this: "There can be no friendship without confidence, and no confidence without integrity," by Samuel Johnson. This quote really plays off in this part of the book. It's kind of an intermediate part. Interdependence versus independence. We have come to a time where an intermediate stage transitioning from an independent circle to an interdependent lifestyle. On your handouts, there's interdependence and dependence. Independence is basically relying on yourself. Interdependence is relying on two or more other people, including yourself.
Give me a sec to write that down. So yeah, the reason we put those down there is because independence is crucial, and it also comes first. So you can see we have private victory preceding public victory. So what that means is we have to know ourselves and really deal with, our own issues and have ourselves right before we can really truly care for others and have victory in the public sphere. So Covey talks about self-mastery and self-discipline being the foundations of good relationships with others. And he talks about this in a great way, talking about the emotional bank account. So we're going to give a little summary of that and go through the 6 deposits.
What is the emotional bank account, you may ask? Well, Covey describes emotional bank account as a metaphor describing an emotional buildup of what it takes to be in a relationship, in any type of relationship. If it's romantic, if it's with a peer, if it's with a coworker. He says that it is the feelings of safeness you have with another human being. I really like that. So I'm going to give you guys an example. You can close your eyes or you can just imagine if you like. Or let's stick to my script because I wrote it the way I wanted to write it. Let's imagine 2 siblings. We have an older sibling and a younger sibling, and they love each other very much. The older sibling is out of college, and the younger sibling is embarking on the beginning of his or her college career. The older sibling wants the best for the younger sibling, and has the wisdom to guide the younger sibling along the journey. However, the younger sibling strays from the expectation or expected life that the older sibling has for him or her. And that wisdom the older sibling has and longs to share, it's just seen as kind of criticism. So what are they missing? They're both missing what it means to understand the other person. They're missing this mutual respect for one another. And this, when that happens, we have what Covey calls a withdrawal from their emotional bank account. Okay, so for example, just if the older sibling says, "Hey, you should be doing this," and the older sibling does the opposite, and the older sibling, it's like, "Why are you doing that?" That is a withdrawal, because the younger sibling sounds like, "You're just criticizing me. Why? I thought you loved me." And this is going to go into the first deposit.
So the example Vince just gave is a main point Covey makes. He pretty much just wants us to know and remember, building and repairing relationships is a long-term project of investment, and it's difficult. So he also says it's essential, and we want to do it. We want to build relationships. They're great. So we're going to go about how Covey talks about doing this in a healthy and fulfilling way. So with that, we're going to get a deposit 1, as you see there on your sheet, which is understanding the individual. It's one of the most important deposits you can make, and is the key to every other deposit. So let's pay close attention as we get in here. But first, Coach Moore, I have a question for you. What is the point of making a deposit if you're depositing something that's worthless? Don't think about it too hard.
Want me to answer?
Yeah, that'd be great.
There's no point.
Exactly. Perfect. Good job. A for you. Without truly knowing and understanding an individual, we can never know what constitutes as a deposit in their eyes. So say I have something that's really important to me. I'm making this garden. I'm growing corn because corn is great. And I take this ear of corn and I bring it to the bank and I'm like, "Hey, this ear of corn is super important to me. It's very valuable in my eyes. I'd like to make this deposit to the bank. The bank's going to say, we don't take corn. So I'm not understanding where they come from and what's important to them, which is money. So that's the same with people. Let's take Brett, for example. Brett's a great guy. Really appreciate him. His #1 love language is physical touch. He loves hugs, as I know personally. He's a great hugger. So let's say Brett's having a hard day. He's just struggling and wants to feel comforted and known. And he comes to me and he's letting me know, I'm struggling right now. These things are going on. And I don't quite know Brett well enough to know about his love language and that he appreciates hugs. So what he wants is, arm around the shoulder, a hug, and to be told, like, it's going to be all right. It's all right. And I just sit there and give him a slap on the back, sit kind of far away, and I'm like, Brett, it's going to be fine, dude. Don't even worry about it. I'm not speaking Brett's language. And so me giving up my time and trying to invest and deposit some good credit into my bank account with Brett goes wasted because I didn't take the time to actually know him. So to make a deposit, Covey says we need a special principle, which is something that's on the sheet. So he says you need to make what is important to the other person as important to you as that person is to you. I'll say it again, this is huge. You need to make what is important to the other person as important to you as that person is to you. So instead of interpreting what constitutes as a deposit from my own needs and desires and portraying those onto Brett, I really need to know Brett and his own desires and his needs so that I can best love him and deposit my care in a way that he can receive well. This also saves me from feeling rejected because although my intentions were always good, without speaking Brett's language, it just kind of goes as wasted time. So one more thing, an essential meaning of the golden rule is another thing we'd love to have you write down. Covey says, understand others deeply as individuals the way you would want to be understood. Which I think is a great way that he views the golden rule.
That's a bless you guys.
Oh, you want it again? Understand others deeply as individuals the way you would want to be understood.
Once you're all done, just kind of look up here so you can go to the next one. Alrighty, so this is a great segment to deposit number 2. Deposit number 2 is attending to the little things. According to Covey, the little things matter. Little things you do for others, no matter how minor or small they seem to you, it conveys to them that you care and that you're present. It may not be very clear to you, it may not be very easy, but it's simple and it's powerful. So I have another example for you guys. With Valentine's tomorrow, so my example is saying a little love. For example, let's take a husband and a wife. It's their wedding day. They are up on the podium giving their vows. The husband just finished his, now it's the wife's turn. The wife looked at her groom with a smile and tears in her eyes and says, I knew I first loved you when you picked me up one day and noticed that I fixed my hair just a little different that night, and I used a new perfume. I knew when I was in love with you when you stood up with me all night when I lost my grandfather. I knew when I wanted to marry you. I've known for the past year by the way you always kissed me when I got home from a hard day at work. In this example, do you see how the little things matter? The husband not necessarily knew those little things can do that, but mean so much to a person. And another example is like going onto the street, seeing a homeless person, just making eye contact means a lot than just walking away. When someone's stressed and you take up their slack during work, just a little thing. It can mean a lot for them. It can make their day this much less stressful.
And so another huge part of marriage and any relationship, and deposit number 3, is keeping commitments. This is a simple deposit, but it's also a major deposit for 2 reasons. People tend to build their hopes around promises. So keeping those promises is a great way to show that you care for that person and value them and their friendship. but breaking a promise is one of the biggest withdrawals we can make from our emotional bank account that we have with someone else. So think about a time when someone made a promise to you, but unfortunately for some reason unexpected and completely out of their control, they were unable to fulfill that promise in the time they said they would. That hurts. Although their situation was totally justified, the expectations they raised and the fact that those expectations were not met is a hard feeling to overcome. It's even more difficult to see the situation and extend grace through it. So, on the sheet, promises will almost always gain or lose trust. So we want to make sure that it's gaining trust. The best advice I have to give here is simple, and I don't want to cloud it too much. So Covey has a philosophy that I think is perfect. It says, don't ever make a promise you don't keep. It's a great way to make sure that you're always gaining trust.
Perfect. And with any type of promise, because your relationship is in a way a promise, this ties into the problem number 4, which is clarifying expectations. We're all different people, with all a unique set of eyes. At the same time, we all have expectations for one another. Whether expectations be implicit or explicit, we have them. Now, Covey explains that it's very important to make your expectations explicit, meaning that they're clear and understood rather than implied. When you have something that's implied, it's kind of like being passive, like passive-aggressive in a way. Not necessarily passive-aggressive, but that's I think a good example. And when you're implying something like, hey, this is, or you say, okay, this is your job, and you're implying this is what entitles to that job, the person who's doing that job is thinking, okay, what do they really want me to do? They didn't say it, so maybe I'm thinking this way, and they do it. And when it comes time to meet, the boss looks and is like, I thought you were gonna do this. And the employee says, well, you didn't explicitly say. I interpreted that you meant this way. And in a relationship, if you're thinking in a friendship that your best friend is always going to be there for you, but your best friend's thinking, I kind of know this person, and sometimes they don't want to speak, so I won't be there until they want me to, but you didn't say it. You see how that kind of makes a little mess? So, but if I'm out, I'm saying, hey, as my best friend, I kind of want you here for me, even though it doesn't seem like I want you here. Or as a boss, like, hey, so this is your job, this is what I want you to do, this is what I expect of you. And therefore, they have to have mutual agreements. Also, Covey explains that a clear understanding of what is expected from another person, any type of relationship, builds trust and understanding, which is a deposit into it. Because if you can learn to trust and understand, knowing exactly what that person means, you won't have to, guess what they're thinking. And when you guess and you're wrong, that's actually they're withdrawing from the emotional bank account.
So deposit number 5, showing personal integrity. This is another very foundational aspect of deposits that applies to many deposits. So integrity in relationships is built off of 2 things. 1, keeping promises. And 2, fulfilling expectations. So Covey gives a definition of integrity, which is to be loyal to those who are not present. This is a very important thing to do. It's also a very difficult thing to do. Give an example. Say Crystal and I hanging out, we're talking, and we start to discuss school and classes, which leads us to talk about senior SEM and just how brutal that class is and how smelly doesn't know what he's doing. It's just ridiculous. So I'm talking about that, kind of bagging on the class. But in class, I'm very respectful in my interactions with Professor Smelly, and I'm always, nice in class. But then I've already said these things to try and gain some personal ground with Crystal that are talking badly behind this professor's back. So in this, I've revealed my true nature. So if Crystal and I have a falling out, now what happens? Because she knows my nature is to be kind and sweet talk you to your face, and then badmouth you behind your back. So in an attempt to relate to Crystal and make a deposit with her, I've now made a larger withdrawal that will affect our friendship moving forward. And so the challenge Covey gives is a difficult one, but it's truly life-giving. He says, integrity is an interdependent reality, and it's as simple as this. You treat everyone by the same set of principles. So this means having the boldness and the power, or the boldness and courage to power through honest confrontation. This means resisting gossiping and truly striving to treat everyone equally as a friend. In the long run, this will allow people to truly trust you and respect you for your honesty and overarching kindness.
When it comes to keeping your word, we're humans, and we don't sometimes keep our words. So the final deposit is apologizing sincerely when you make a withdrawal. Most of us, if not all, were raised to admit to our faults. In this deposit, this is exactly what Covey is trying to tell us. He expresses that when we all make withdrawals from the emotional bank account, we need to apologize, and we need to do it sincerely. It takes a great deal of character strength to apologize quickly out of one's own heart rather than out of pity. I believe it's common knowledge that when we make a mistake, we try to justify our wrong to make it right. Well, by doing so, we break down trust and withdrawals start to occur. Through humility, we're able to be vulnerable to our faults and admit it. And that is making a deposit because you're showing to the other person that you care for them, that you were wrong, that being right is not what matters. What matters is that we may agree to disagree, but yet I still love that person. I'm still there for that person. I'm still their coworker. I'm still their spouse. I'm still their friend. And that's very important. And if we don't do that, then where's the trust? Now, those are the 6 deposits. We're going to start going to the rest of the chapter. The next part of this chapter is the laws of love and the laws of life. Within the laws of love, our love for others should be without condition, without a sense of strings and manipulations. The laws of love should allow the longevity of cooperation, contribution, self-discipline, and integrity, which is the laws of life, to be able to do that. Covey argues that we don't ultimately live like this. We withdraw from those around us and counterdependence is formed. They then become reactive and feel as if they need to prove that they matter to us. You ever seen that? Where we don't love someone, we don't allow them to do these things, and there's what we were talking about in the deposits, when there's that wall and people start to argue against each other instead of realizing they're arguing for the same thing, or they're actually trying the hidden message behind that is they're trying to say, I matter. I know you're right, I'm right too. We're arguing the same thing, but I matter. And that's like the biggest thing, and I think it's what the biggest part of this little section is. To conclude this little section, Covey writes, the laws of love and life help build community.
So to finish, we just want to say the habits of interdependence, they allow us to have success in working with other people, and they're essential. And effective interdependence can only be achieved by truly independent people. So we want to reiterate where we started and say that we need our own independence, self-mastery, and self-discipline to truly be healthy enough and to know ourselves well enough that we can then go out and care for others and build relationships. So with that, we want to open the floor and take any questions, anything you guys resonated with or didn't quite understand, and we'll expand on it. If you need any of the fill in the blanks or anything, we'd love to fill those in and just get thoughts from y'all. Yeah, no.
I missed Covey's definition of integrity. Do you mind reiterating what that was?
I would absolutely love to do that. Covey's definition of, or Covey, as it said, his definition of integrity is to be loyal to those who are not present.
Okay. Absolutely. Anything else? Any questions, comments, concerns, lifelong stories?
So when Travis was making the example of like talking to Crystal and then like bad mouthing a professor, how would that apply to apologizing sincerely when you make a withdrawal? Because that seems like a withdrawal that he wouldn't necessarily be aware of in that situation. It's more of a takeaway from Crystal, like, oh, like Travis just showed me who he really is. But Travis is thinking like, oh yeah, we just like bonded, I guess, for lack of a better term on that.
Yeah, so what that comes into is understanding and the expectation part. I love these, they all kind of combine together. So withdrawals don't happen when it's not necessarily clear. You don't see them. It happens somewhere in a subconscious level where your mind is like, whoa, I did not expect that of him. And then that's where the withdrawal happens. However, I think when it, does that answer your question a little bit? Or want to reiterate your question so I could?
Well, I guess my question is since it's subconscious, does Travis just need to be able to analyze that and then go back to Crystal later and be like, hey, sorry, that's not who I really am? Or does he just lose out?
Oh, well, it's all situational.
Yeah.
In that case, Travis, if he's aware of it, yes. If not, Crystal could come up and say, hey, Trav, I was not expecting of this of you. It kind of, I felt this way about you. I just want to make sure, like, is this you? Is something going on? And that's when, yeah, that's that withdrawal happened. But then if Crystal or Travis came up, not so much admitting a fault or just calling it for the expectation and making it clear, that's where the deposit happens right there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also Covey talks briefly about if I truly had interdependence and we were in that situation, you know, we had a problem with the class, I would be like, all right, Crystal, we should go talk to him about this. We should go deal with it with him and make it productive and proactive. So that's probably, that example is kind of showing that I'm not in a place of complete interdependence and am acting from that.
Anything else?
Great, thanks so much.